The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or beliefs of Marshall University, Marshall University Libraries, the Department of English, the College of Liberal Arts, Marshall University Film Studies, or HerdCon. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our newest episode of Giant Bombs: Exploring Cinema Through Famous Box Office Flops. I am Cody Lumpkin, and as always is Professor Ian Nolte, and we have a special guest today to talk about the film that we're going to talk about. This is Dr. Rachael Peckham. If you don't mind, Rachel, I'm going to give you a brief introduction that is way too short for the stuff you've gotten into over the years.
It's perfect.
Dr. Rachael Peckham is a professor of English at Marshall University, where she teaches literature and creative writing with a focus on creative nonfiction and memoir. She's the author of A Light, Flights of Prose from Uncollected Press, her forthcoming book co-written with Dr. Joel Peckham, who is also a Marshall colleague of us, and you and he are married, just to full disclosure. They have written a book, Flight 932, the 1970 Marshall plane crash and the story of an American town, that's scheduled to be released by University Press of Kentucky in October 2026. In addition to her writing, Rachel is the recipient of the Distinguished John Deaver Drinko Academy Fellowship, the Hedrick Outstanding Faculty Award, and was named the 2024 Professor of the Year for West Virginia. And we're so glad that when we asked you about this film that you came on and took some of your, I'm sure, busy time to talk a little bit about
this. It's a delight. Thank you. I'm so excited.
So the film we're talking about today is from 1985. It is Return to Oz, which was a bomb at the box office, I believe. Budget anywhere from $25 to $28 million, only made about $11 million in total box office. Was released Friday, June 21st, 1985. Other notable films that came out was the very popular hit Cocoon and another wonderful bomb I hope we talk about at one point, but is very different, Life Force. The plot of it the IMDb summary is Dorothy, saved from a psychiatric experiment by a mysterious girl, is somehow called back to Oz when a vain witch and the Gnome King destroy everything that makes the magical land beautiful. Came out in 1985, big bomb. It was a Disney film. I was just kind of wondering, we're all somewhat of the same age area, generation. Yep. I was wondering, what is your knowledge or experience about these films? Rachel, you can kick us off.
My knowledge of Return to Oz?
Yeah, as like the first encounter.
Okay, so I wrote about this in a personal essay, but I came to know the film because when we would get sick, my mom would take us to Blockbuster in the nearest town from our farm, which is like a good hike. But since we would usually go to the doctor's office, that was our treat. We got to go get a movie. And I don't know why. Well, I was a big fan of The Wizard of Oz, but I don't know why I kept going back to this creepy. Is it a sequel technically? I don't know.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. It's such an odd choice for me. Even as a child, I did not gravitate usually towards fantasy. I'm a nonfiction writer and teacher, but I think I was always geared towards true stories. And so this was very out of the norm for me. But I think because I was so familiar with Wizard of Oz, even though I had not read the series, this film had like a weird hold on me. And my mom didn't like it. She made no secret of it. She thought it was creepy, and maybe because I would always rent it when I was sick, like it really felt like a fever dream. But I was just transfixed by it. So it was always my choice. And, then I didn't think about it for a long, long time until I recently started writing about my great-grandfather, who, it's no secret in my family, he underwent 8 years of electric shock therapy. And he was one of the few cases where it helped, allegedly. I don't remember him very much. But in thinking about my great-grandfather, my mind went back to watching this film because it was about the same time when he was starting to really decline. So
Would you consider yourself like aware of your grandfather's treatment, like as you were encountering this story?
No, not at all.
It wasn't until later in life?
He was by that point in his mid-80s and was really depressed and in a nursing home. So I dreaded going to see him, but I had no idea about his mental health history. Nobody in my Midwestern family talked about that subject, and it wasn't until much later when I think I was probably in late high school, that I learned that he had been institutionalized for a period of time, and that depression and anxiety ran in the family. And I started to struggle with anxiety in high school. So, and that's kind of the context in which I learned about this. So, yeah, I didn't connect those dots when I was growing up, but recently, yeah, I started thinking about maybe that is part of why this film, on some deep level, like captivated me, because it was about obviously a farmer, Henry and Em, and they had fallen on hard times, and my great-grandfather really struggled with some changes on the farm when they started to modernize it. He had a breakdown, and that's kind of what initiated his treatment.
Yeah, well, in the time when you encountered this film, you'd been to visit your grandfather in the hospital?
Yeah, he was in a nursing home.
I can imagine how, like, the first 30 minutes of this movie kind of swirl around those pictures of the farm, the farmer who is in mental distress at the beginning of this movie.
Right.
Like, he's disconnected, he's broken his leg, but hasn't gotten better. The farm has been destroyed by a tornado previously, and he's struggling to piece it back together. And then Dorothy, in the beginning of this movie, travels to a psychiatric hospital. I imagine all those images swirling around seemed as if they were plucked from your
It's the
childhood.
first 30 minutes of the film that I would say I was most sort of mesmerized by. I don't know what the word would be. Like, I was scared, but I was, yeah. And as you know, the rest of the film kind of takes a weird turn. But that first 30 minutes, that I would say that was the most exciting part of the film for me as a kid. So in 1985, I was 5. My great-grandfather passed away in 1989 when I was 9. So, yeah, those years, I wasn't aware of my family's mental health history, but something about it, I just captured my imagination.
Yeah, yeah.
You grew up in Minnesota, right?
Michigan.
I'm sorry, Michigan.
Yep.
Was the landscape there more like what you see, kind of prairie than?
Well, it is in southern Michigan. So Michigan is an odd state, depending on if you're in the UP or the West or the East. It's in southern Michigan where I grew up. I grew up in a tri-state area. It's funny that I would end up in one again. But so where I grew up, it was more like what you would associate with Indiana, northern Indiana, kind of flat and a lot of corn and very rural. So not like Kansas, but enough that I could relate.
Yeah, it can be particularly in once all the crops are in, it can be a very stark landscape.
It's very stark. The first time I took Joel, my husband, home to the farm, I was he grew up in this quaint New England town. It's so storybook perfect. And I was embarrassed to show him kind of the landscape of where I grew up because I didn't think it was very special or interesting. And he just couldn't get over that stark beauty. He saw it through a poet's eyes, I guess. But he felt like it was so expansive. And I never thought about it that way, that, you can see for miles. And tornadoes occupied my fears a lot. Like, I would dream of them. And that stopped when I left the Midwest. So did you experience that, having grown up or spent time out there?
Yeah, I grew up in the South, so that we had our tornadoes. Right. And then Indiana wasn't, but Nebraska, I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is is terraformed into a city full of trees because the Arbor Foundation, which The Arbor Day Foundation. They're terrible people, and they see like trees as this like civilizing influence. So where there aren't trees, that's where the undesirable people are. So it's very kind of racist
Yeah, right.
underpinnings, but this sense of that open exposure of the land and the open. I think what's
Yeah.
interesting what's very kind of striking is when they're going across the land, it's kind of the horizons are kind of split. So you can see the sky, which is very it's very noon. It's very like it's in the daylight. So it's just a white light, and then you can see the kind of land below them. So this is between of like, I guess this idea of like, if you've ever seen like pictures of prairies or plains where it's like there's the ground and there's this huge sky, right?
Right.
And this kind of, I guess, colonialist, post-colonial argument that there's nothing here, so we can do what we want with the space. So who there was nobody here, nothing happened. We'll terraform it. We'll do what we want to the space. And a lot of in other kind of flat places like Aboriginal art in Australia, it's often the sky and the land is flipped. There's a lot more ground than sky, and that's usually like little details and imagery of like animals and places to sleep and fires. So there's a sense of life in that prairie as opposed to just the sky.
Right, the sky and what could fall from it.
Did you guys ever experience tornadoes as children, or have an experience with tornadoes?
Fortunately, none that came close, but like I never heard what people describe as like a train. I never heard that firsthand, but there were times that were really scary, and my parents would grab us and take us down to the basement, and they'd make like a fun sleepover of it. Like we would get our sleeping bags. So they were good about like not showing their fear. But where I grew up, everybody talks about the Palm Sunday tornado of, I don't know what year, 1964 or something. And so that memory, that's a collective memory in my little farming community.
That is interesting too in this film, the way in this film on the screen the little girl does not experience a tornado, but the tornado that happened is so hangs over this movie. Like she constantly encounters evidence of the tornado, like both in Kansas and in Oz. Like this is a little girl who lived through a tornado is one of the most important things about her.
Right. There's something about a tornado that feels, and maybe this is true of all natural disasters. It poses this existential threat. But I would say even more so with a tornado, just given that it kind of comes out of the sky in this funnel, like it does feel a bit like the hand of God, just and it's so erratic.
Yeah, the randomness. It saves one house, destroys another.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So, yeah, it was always sort of a present threat in the spring and summertime, I would say, growing up.
Yeah.
I grew up in Cabell County, West Virginia, so always the furthest you can see is from one ridge to another.
Yeah.
And I always experience a sense of like awe and wonder in flat places. Like it seems so like different to me. And tornadoes for me are like when I was a little kid, or like things from storybooks, like volcanoes and dinosaurs, these things that happen far away that never immediately touched or influenced my life in a way. Like I never knew anybody that experienced a tornado. They're just things in movies and things on the news.
Yeah, it's a very sensory experience. Like you can smell the change, you can feel it, and there's a certain color that comes over the sky. It almost looks green. That's my memory of it. I don't know about yours, but it's very eerie. I can see why Baum picked it. And he grew up in upstate New York, so that's not necessarily a region we associate with a lot of tornadic activity. But I can see why it made for kind of a perfect.
I think he also spent time in South Dakota very much, and so that really probably saw.
Yeah,
there's just no place, especially if there's just no place to hide. The storm is coming, and you have to get down get down where you can.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things the film does is in a sense it's a sequel. It's a sequel in a sense that we're following what happened in the first book / movie. But I like the approach of it is that we're going to show you the fallout. Like, we end happy. No, it doesn't end happy. Their house is destroyed.
Yep.
They're clearly going through depression and shell shock and all of this stuff. And the autumn's here and winter's coming on. So things are not good for this family. It's
Right.
not like we're all happy and she woke up again and haha.
I think the idea of this movie as a sequel is one of the most interesting and complicated things about the story presentation. I remember my first encounter with this movie when I was a little kid is whenever it hit home video, it was like my family renting it. And I can remember watching it and just not getting it. It's like, here's a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. And I maybe didn't understand the span of time since The Wizard of Oz came out. And I didn't understand like movie production. I was just like, it's going to be like the Judy Garland one.
Right.
And then watching this movie and just being baffled by it, just like, even at a conceptual level, like, there's no songs. Like,
Yeah,
and then like
that's right.
she goes to Munchkinland and it's not like Munchkinland. I don't get it. And I remember really just being confused by the movie more than anything. And I do remember so vividly is my mom hated this movie. And I remember thinking that was so interesting. Like, oh, she did not. Like, we watched a movie and she didn't like it. Like, it was like a weird idea to me. Because I thought, when I was a little kid, I thought all movies were great. And that if you didn't like it, it was something wrong with you. Like, oh, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. But like, she was like, oh, I hated that movie. And I was like, I was just my adult mom hated it. That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. I've never talked to my mom about it. I just knew as a kid she just would reluctantly rent it for me again and again. But maybe she also had her own positive associations with the original.
Yeah.
And also didn't care for this take.
Yeah. So for me, it was just like so different from the originals to be like, what is happening? And then I think for my parents, it was just some movie they rented. They didn't like. They probably never thought about it after we played it in the house that evening. But for me, I never encountered it again. So it just like came in the house one day. They're like, there's a sequel to The Wizard of Oz. I watched it and was like, I don't know what I just watched. And then it disappeared forever as if it never happened. And then because the movie was not like a very successful film, it just never came up again in my life. And when I was a real little kid, I remember like thinking about it sometimes. Like, there was a movie where Dorothy fought rollerblade guys. And then I would be like, but did I make that up?
See, it's a fever
dream.
Yes.
It felt like a dream to me. Like, where I was just like, did I make that up? Did that happen? So it's such a strange movie.
It is a strange movie, and I think the Dr. Worley's explanation to Dorothy about the excessive electrical currents in the brain producing bad dreams and there's a degree of logic to that. Like it does track, I think, just enough that I think, I don't know, it does.
We have to drain the electricity out of your brain.
Yeah, or that something needs to have a hard reset. You know, like it's. What did he say? Our brains are made of electricity, or something, kind of hyperbolic like that. But it is interesting that there is a grain of truth to it, and I didn't understand that as a child, but I think I was just fascinated by, first of all, Dorothy's odd, calm state, which was not I couldn't believe this little girl was just going along with it. And I was rooting for her to escape. But even watching it again this week, like even that scene where she's on the table and she's waiting, I still feel so incredibly anxious for her, every time.
Oh, I have a little girl. She's 7 now, but I showed her this movie when she was 5. I think it must have been Disney Plus released it.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus.
They had a special collection of Disney Vault films.
Oh, really?
And I think whenever that launched, I was excitedly clicking through it, looking for the rare movies they had in there. And I saw this movie, and we were just watching TV one afternoon. Yeah. And I was like, let's just click this one on and see how the little girl reacts to it. And when she was 5, she had a very interesting I am fascinated by the way she like encounters stories and what she makes of them. She watched this movie, and she was really into it for that first half hour. Like the part on the farm, the little girl, and even up through like getting scared and like going to the strange doctor where she's under threat, like really into the movie. And then like basically the minute she gets to Oz, it was really, I think, when the Wheelers attacked, she got too scared and she said, "Turn it off."
Yeah.
But so I thought, oh, this movie is too much. The wheel, that was too much. But what I noticed was for the next like little bit of time, she would go back to it and she would watch that first half hour a few times into it worked its way into her play where for a brief period of time, like a week or more, she would play, "I'm Dorothy Gale, I'm Dorothy Gale."
Wow.
And I was trying to figure out why this movie, and then why not the magical part.
Yes.
And I was trying to figure out what she liked about it. And this is the conclusion I kind of landed on. She liked the story of a little girl with fantastic braids who has a dog and a chicken. Yeah. And she maybe didn't connect with the threat or the implications of like going to the doctor and like electroshock therapy. That was kind of read as nonsense to her. But what was very interesting is when she gets to the doctor's office, there's another little friend that she meets, another little girl. And that was a style of story that was deeply attractive to her. A movie when she was 5 that she really got super into and watched over and over again was Coraline, which has basically the same first act. There's a lonely little girl who goes to a new place where she feels a little bit out of place, and she meets a friend.
Yeah.
And she would watch all of Coraline, but she was very much more so into the first 20 minutes, which is about Coraline meeting Wyborn, and making a friend, like making a little friend. And another movie she watched, Turning Red, which is a film about a little girl who she goes to school, she has 3 friends, and at the end of Act 1, she turns into a giant panda. And she would turn it off whenever she saw the red panda. Yeah. But and I asked her why. I remember that movie. I asked her, "Why do you turn this one off?" And she goes, "I don't like the panda. He's out of control." And I realized my little girl's an only child.
Yeah.
And she liked these stories about little girls who are only children who meet another friend. And I realized, oh, she's lonely.
Yeah.
And she likes this story of meeting, like, there's a little girl in the hospital. Oh, there's a little boy who's in the neighborhood or in my new house. These are my 3 friends at school.
Yeah.
And when the stories kick into their primary conflicts, which are about a fantasy adventure, she's like, oh.
Doesn't resonate as much.
Yeah. And I was like, that was just one of those movies that clicked for her. There's a little girl with fantastic braids with a chicken and a dog who meets a little friend.
That is great. Wow. Yeah, I feel like your daughter and I would be friends. I don't know. I mean, I definitely think we don't give kids enough credit. Not that you're doing this, but I think in general, kids, we assume that they're not going to connect with, I think, these very relatable, they don't need necessarily a lot of fantastic action to happen. Sometimes I think they're connecting with something that they can't articulate yet.
Yeah. That's what I
but-
thought too, is like that's what made this story so powerful, was she couldn't say, "I wish there was another little kid around here."
Right.
And it was such a powerful and fantastic idea to her. She found these stories she'd engage with, like just the first 30 minutes of let's meet all the friends was fascinating to her.
Yeah. That's interesting because Darius, my son, grew up an only child, and books and films as well were his company. But I don't know. I'm trying to think if there was a single. I don't know. He really liked Neil Gaiman books, which is kind of taboo to say now, I think. But like
Y'all didn't know at the time.
Oh yeah,
Now we know better.
But definitely those were powerful, important works for lots of people in that time range, especially.
Yep. But I didn't necessarily have that experience growing up. I was part of a bigger family and had cousins. I mean, we were on a farm, so it was just basically my siblings and cousins who were my playmates. But I do think there was something very compelling to me about the little girl who was around my age, who had to navigate this scary world And she was considered to be sick, and I mentioned that was the occasion by which we only got to rent movies when we were sick. So I suppose that I connected on those levels with her. But I can't say that I necessarily had like profound or deep thoughts about it. I still struggle to articulate like, what is it about this terrible movie? I mean, by all measures, it really is a bad movie with some really, I keep using the word compelling, but there are certain things about it that I think are brilliant.
I think a movie like this is, I think because the film text is so, it doesn't work on some levels. That it's almost like a sore tooth where you're like, there's these things about it that are so compelling, but they don't stack up into like a piece that really functions, that they do like jab into your mind. And because the like roller coaster of the movie is not functioning right. Like it is almost like it engages with your brain in a different way. And you are just like, why isn't it feel like other movies?
Right.
Maybe particularly for a child is like, why isn't it like The Wizard of Oz? Is the only thing I could think when I was watching this. Why is it not like it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love this movie. I think it's a great film.
You like this movie this movie as a child, right?
Yeah,
Like
I remember I saw it in the theater.
Wow.
It would have been, from what I can extrapolate from my past and whatever memories I have, June 22nd, 1985. It was a Saturday.
Impressive. That's impressive.
I use the internet helps with dates and things like that. And then it was this place called the Galleria Mall Cinema, or Galleria Mall 8. It was kind of in this hoity-toity part of north of Atlanta. And I went with my mom. And one of the things I remember is that she got a survey to ask me. And they were asking, why are you looking forward to this film? And it was it seemed like a little more, are you looking for the creatures or the return of Dorothy? I don't remember much about that, but I remember I want to see the creatures, and that I was looking forward to seeing the return of the classical characters too. That's what I remember responding to, which is, in one sense, we certainly got some very inventive creatures, characters, and then, but also very, very much it feels like the opening. It's like a Mission Impossible where they wipe out the first group, and then he's got a whole new group that he's got to work with. It has that very much that appeal to, like, well, those characters are gone for now. Here's a whole bunch of new and interesting characters that you can find out and know and love about. So that was something that was initially disorienting to me about this film, but I just I dug that it was different. And I remember growing up, CBS at least once a year would show The Wizard of Oz, and it was a big deal. It'd be like sometime during the middle of the week, and they'd have lots of commercials, and you get to watch The Wizard of Oz, even though it was available on video. And it was just a thing that my family did. And
I remember that.
And then just something that was just so different, and it was dark, and I loved it. And I didn't watch it obsessively, but I remember going out, that wasn't what I expected, but I really enjoyed what it was in like whatever 5 or 6 year old brain I had at the time. And when Disney Plus came out as a streaming service, I did use that for a couple of years for an online good films class. And this was the fantasy film that I taught.
Oh,
and
wow.
that was like, okay, I think this is a rich one. And I had read the 2 books it's based on, Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma, for comparison, because I was just like really into the movie when I saw it again.
Wow, interesting.
And it seemed like students had a really good experience. I remember one student in like kind of reflections had said, this is a dark time we live in. This was a nice break from that. I was like, yes, it is keyword break. But I have fond memories of teaching this film.
That's so interesting, because this was like, when I went back to look at it this week as an adult, this was exactly the kind of movie I loved the most as a kid. Like, these 1980s fantasy films were my favorite movies as a child. What I wished would come home from the video rental store every time was exactly this movie. And I don't know why I didn't deeply connect with it on my first viewing the way you did. I am really unfamiliar with those. I know The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, but I've never read into the subsequent books.
Yeah.
What is going on with those?
So I like to think this book is like a faithful conflation of the two books. So their characters, like the main villain in Marvelous Land of Oz is Mombi, the witch, and the main villain in Ozma is the Gnome King. And things like Jack Pumpkinhead, he's in the first one. He's in Land. TikTok's in Ozma. And there are things that are like sacrificed in that, but I think it's like this is faithful to both of the books as far as the characters. And I don't think you don't read L. Frank Baum for like complicated narratives. It's like weird stuff happens, magical stuff. The characters do something clever. These are things in the realm of fairy tales. And they're really weird. And that's as far as I've read so far. As far as I know, they get even weirder as you go along. And I think one of the little things in Marvelous Land of Oz, there's a character named Tip that's like is like a servant to Mombi. And we find out later that he is actually a she, and she is Queen Ozma. So there's this strange, I don't think Baum meant at the time, but there's a trans kind of narrative that kind of comes with a twist ending in that book. Now that part's obviously excised because in Marvelous, Ozma, Tip/Ozma is the main character, and probably there's like, hey, where's Dorothy? Bring Dorothy back. And so Dorothy comes back for the third book. But yeah, and the electromatic shock that I don't recall from being in the third book at all.
That's what I wondered.
Oh yeah, that was my big question. It's like, does Dorothy get shock treatment in those books? It seemed like it would be a big jump between The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and the Marvelous World of Oz if they would electroshock therapy.
Yeah.
Well, didn't that treatment come along much later?
That's what I think. I was wondering that too, because
so
I think of that as a thing from like the 60s or the 50s.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a discontinuity.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's interesting to see the IMDb film summary note that Dorothy's saved from a psychiatric experiment, that they don't name it electro
in the
shock therapy.
description. Yeah. That's an interesting choice of language.
It is. It is a psychiatric experiment, right? So I know that's interesting to know, though, that the books are also very episodic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, like you acquire a character.
Yeah.
You know, like in the Marvelous Land, she creates Jack Pumpkin. Jack Pumpkin comes to life. The Tip character creates Jack. So. And I think as far as the creature creation is just something I'm obsessed with, and I don't want to get into too much, but that you have such a well-crafted character like TikTok, like this is a creature that is made by a master craftsperson.
I did think the creature effects in this movie, I did look at them and think they're kind of disjointed in that, like the sort of like the visual sense of this movie is all over the place. But each individual creature is amazingly performed, like in the sense that I don't really know how that Jack Pumpkinhead character works. And I think it's because it works different ways in different shots.
Yeah.
Similar with TikTok, where I don't really know how they perform the full body puppetry of TikTok. And I think it's that great use of like magical blending of practical effects, where in close-up it's working one way, in wide shots it's working one way, in like some shots of the movie it only works that way that one time, and it builds that great kind of visual confusion of like, well, how can this be true in the continuity of this thing, so that three objects kind of become one in your mind, that creates that sense of impossibility.
At one point it's a model or a puppet, and then clearly there's somebody in the costume moving it around.
Yeah, like I don't really know where the human body is in that Jack Pumpkin thing, and I'm like, where is the guy's arms and legs really?
I mean, the thing I like so much about it is that while TikTok, I think, is this immaculate creation, this is a master toy maker, but Jack Pumpkinhead is the creation of a child with available materials, and the same thing for the Gump. It just, this is one of those things it's like, look, it's kids using their imagination.
I did think the face of the Gump was amazingly animated, like for what must be just a pure puppetry. Like it has a really great range of like motion and looks and expressions. So there is really great visual effects in this movie, which is like also the kind of thing I'm into is like practical effect monsters from the 1980s.
And so I really love this half-hearted designs. This is, I think, these half-hearted intentional designs and these more kind of precise designs in the characters and the creatures. I like that this is something a child made with a limited amount of time, and this is something that we probably spent a long time figuring out how to make an army out of a 10 guy, that has weapons and stuff.
Just those wheelers.
The wheelers.
That is,
I know.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Right? Those arms. No, it's just so creepy. Ugh.
And the way the mask works, with a head down mask.
Right.
That is something you design, like, it seems like a stage design.
Yeah.
Like,
interesting.
Like something that's supposed to like roll out on Broadway or something. Like, how are they doing it? Like that sense of masking really felt like coming from a stage tradition to me.
Oh, that's really interesting. What about the choice to have the actors in the opening, like the nurse and the doctor and the orderly, appear as those villains?
Yeah, like a definite connection to how the Wizard of Oz works, like echoing that film.
The doubling of roles.
I don't think that's how the novels never imply that.
No.
Like there's no.
She went to Oz.
Yes. That's like a movie thing.
Yeah.
Remind me, in the original, is the wizard? Who is he?
He's like
a traveling.
Yeah, the traveling huckster.
That's right.
And he's the traveling huckster.
I can't remember if she meets him in Kansas in the novel.
She does. Yeah, he's got like a little like wagon, and he tells fortunes and stuff like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
This is fascinating. I think I mentioned in my notes that I'm reading this biography of L. Frank Baum. Have you read it, Cody?
No, I have not.
It's good. I'm only like 50 pages in. It's not very far, but she's obviously connecting some dots between his lived experience and the books. But she notes that I think it was in Syracuse where he grew up, somebody had uncovered this stone man. And it created all this obvious buzz, like, what is this? And people had like theories about it's a prehistoric man. I don't know. All these wild ideas. Well, it was a hoax. Yeah. And then I think one of the major circus, I don't know if it was Barnum Bailey, but they like took it or made one like it and then traveled around with it. So, I think he was interested in hucksters and. You know what I mean? Like
the sense of the
illusion.
sideshow.
Yeah,
he doesn't like them.
Yeah.
I mean, and Dr. Worley is a huckster as well, right. A malignant one. I think like maybe a little bit. He had like, it's like he had a good idea. Like keep telling all these, and it seems like clearly it's girls and not boys that are needing treatment because their imaginations or they can't sleep, and to tamp them down and control them. And at some point when the idea that there's people in the basement screaming and things like that, and the torture that they're doing is that like he feels like a scientist that like he's gonna keep trying to get new results on the same experiment every time. Yeah. And he has such a wonderful veneer of being respectable. You go see his office; it's nice. But then you get right. It's like dirty and grimy and stark.
It's so creepy. And the mid '80s would have been around the time when a lot of sanitariums and asylums were closing. Is that right?
Yeah, up until the 90s.
I think so. Like after One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a lot of reform happened.
I think that is one of the things that makes this film such like a sticky, like pointy object is that concept or idea of the electroshock therapy is like, to me, just someone who only consumes electroconvulsive therapy through popular culture, like a huge like threat that was foisted upon people who, at least in the stories I've encountered, didn't necessarily understand or need the treatment. Right. And to include that as act one of your children's story is so strange because that's the association your audience has with it, is that she's being tortured. She's
Right.
going to be
Yes.
tortured. And it is such a dark
It is
beginning
so
to this
dark.
movie.
Yes, it is.
And I can't understand where they grabbed that creatively for the story. Like, if the idea is to make a sequel to the film The Wizard of Oz, this film doesn't really ever deliver on any of those premises. There are no songs in it. If it's to present the material from the novels, which it does a little more faithfully, why include electroconvulsive therapy? It's so strange.
It's a strange
Yeah,
premise.
and I think it just makes the movie stick out to you. Like, I think some stories have that thing in them where it's like, why?
Yeah.
I was at this conference many years ago, and I can't remember the paper, but it was Fantastic in the Arts 2004, 2005. And somebody was presenting a paper about transitions and traveling in L. Frank Baum's books. And often characters going from our world to Oz, it is often this weird, convoluted, sometimes painful, uncomfortable experience and this kind of transition. It's never like snap and you're there, and it's never here's a comfortable bed while we sail you along. It's always this turmoil. And I think the film does this very well. She gets swept away in a flood that takes her to Oz. That these are like painful things, and that like the painful associations with something like electroshock therapy would be one of the kind of precipitating events of like that transition into going to Oz that kind of marks that. And I think too, there's clear kind of parallel in something like a film like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that they're kind of referencing here is this kind of like way back then when it was a new technology to treat people. But I think it seems to be something that any young girl who is out of the norm is a candidate for this kind of oppression and this kind of torture. So, because what is she? She can't sleep, and she's bad at chores because she can't sleep, and she won't shut up about this imaginary place.
Right.
You know, is this the thing we should be using our resources?
And that's another thing that's so scary and sad about the beginning of this is Aunt Em takes her for this treatment not to torture her, but because she is desperate, like, for anything, because she wants to save the little girl. Like, she keeps talking about Oz and the Scarecrow and the witch, and I don't understand why, and I need someone to help me with her.
Right.
And she goes to this man who says he can, who he can't, who has a magic thing that he says will do it, which it won't, and she leaves her with him. It's like so scary. It's such a scary idea.
It is, and there is an interesting tension in the beginning between Em and Henry when they're talking about the decision to take Dorothy to that sanitarium because it's expensive, and it's Em's sister who's funding it. Do you remember that moment?
I don't remember I don't remember saying it that way.
Yeah, I can't quote it, but basically Em says to Henry, it's not a loan, it's from family. So yes, she's clearly desperate. But there's also a moment when Em says to Dorothy that because she doesn't sleep at night, she's no help to Em.
Oh, yeah, she says, "You're no help to me."
Yeah, you're no help to me. And clearly this is a woman who is exhausted and frustrated that her husband is kind of disabled. So, yeah, it's on Em. But you can tell that she doesn't want to leave her there at the same time. Like, it's an interesting conundrum.
Yeah. I mean, the family's economically between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Everybody needs to work on the farm so they can get stuff, to sell stuff, to make money. And there's no, there's just, you've got two people not well abled. And she's just, I think the Piper Laurie, the actress who plays a really good job of like conveying that guilt and that conflicted feelings, but also like, okay, we do need to survive the winter.
Yeah, right.
So I don't,
right.
yeah, I don't, it's definitely a character I don't have any ire about. I think it's a bad decision, but she's making what she thinks is the best decision she can.
Well, and that resonates with what I know about my own family and the struggle they had to come to that decision to take my great-grandfather to Detroit for these treatments and to leave him there for weeks at a time. So fortunately, he was never institutionalized for very long. Like, he would go for a couple weeks, they'd bring him back, and this went on and on for 8 years. But in talking with some uncles and aunts, like, it was terrible, like how they came to that decision and leaving him there, and he would just weep. He just really didn't want to be left. Understandably, and I think the places were scary and depressing. So it's hard to say. Sometimes I wonder if my family spins it like these treatments helped him because they need to believe that. And he was able to function better, I guess. But part of me also wonders, is it just because he was so relieved to be home?
Yeah.
Like he would.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it was that it was effective and how much of it was just
bad experiences, and this is better.
Yeah. I don't know.
And it's so strange to me in the creation of the screenplay that they really create that moment for Aunt Em to be like,
Right.
I am desperate to help this little girl.
Yeah.
And I have to try something, anything. It doesn't matter how, I don't understand it or I'm scared of it. If I can convince myself it will help her, we will do it. And how she has to make a real sacrifice at the beginning of this story to I'm taking her, let's go.
Right. It's expensive. It's far away. And she notes to the nurse, I've not been away from this little girl one night, So it clearly weighs on her. But I think some of that rang true for me when I watched it as an adult. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that fascinates about the movie is that dramatic point, the origin of it completely exists in the movie. It is not from the novels. It's not from the previous film. It's some storytelling invention designed to put the audience in that emotional place solely for the purposes of this film, which I think is the key to what makes the film struggle to really be a film for popular audiences,
right?
But also what makes it really just hang in your memory is that feeling at the beginning of the film, before the amazing fantasy, before the escapism, is how dark it gets. I mean, they have Dorothy on the table, they have it strapped, they're going to convulse her.
Yep.
And there are various shots, like in the opening shot where she's in the bed and she's in the doctor's office, and in that scene, she is so small. It's just her head. Everything else is covered up, and she's so small in the frame and powerless at that point. This is one of the low point of her story at that point, before circumstances and magical escape allow her to get to Oz.
Are you guys
Potion of life.
Are you guys very familiar with this the performer Fairuza Balk?
Yes.
I am not.
I didn't recognize her in this movie, but after I watched the movie, I was like, "Who's that actress?" And I do know her face. She's been in many popular movies. She was a voice in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I learned.
She was one of the actresses, and she was one of the witches in The Craft.
Yeah, which was, I think that's where I saw her most commonly. That was kind of a big movie when I was in high school.
Oh, interesting.
I can't tell you. I think about it. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I've been going through Wicked the past couple years, couple Christmases, and I can't tell you the first time I watched The Wizard of Oz. So I was asking, when's the first time you heard the word Santa Claus? It doesn't. I don't know. I just always knew
In the primordial memories.
And I think it is I can't tell you why. But I think it is something primordial about how you absorb stories before you can read, before you can even make your autobiographical memories. The character Dorothy, for no reason I can articulate, is powerfully important to me. And I am sensitive to her portrayal in other media because there are things I believe about her connected to that Judy Garland performance. And going back to it, as a man watching this movie, I thought this Dorothy was fantastic. That this actress has this whole movie on her shoulders. There's not another human face for most of the movie. And I thought that she, at times, echoed Judy Garland in a way that was spooky and strange, but that she made the performance of the character own with its own strength. And I thought the way the character was written was the way I like to see Dorothy, is that she is kind and she believes you when she meets you, but she's not naive. And that her strength comes from the fact that she just believes in the people around her, that she won't let somebody quit. She won't let somebody give up. She's always encouraging and never defeated. And I just liked this Dorothy so much. And she gathers up all her little friends, and they don't think they can do it, but she knows they can, and we're going to keep trying. And in the face of outrageous circumstances, she demands politeness and respect of others, and she gives it to them until they no longer deserve it. Like when she meets the Gnome King, she is deferential to him as a person and as a king, and then she only acts against him when she's put in direct conflict, when he threatens her friends. And I liked this Dorothy a lot.
Yeah. I liked that she read younger than the.
Yes.
I know what you're saying about.
Judy Garland reads as an adult to me, and I thought of her as an adult when I was a child.
Yes, I did
but
too.
This is a little kid.
Yes.
And it's different.
Yep. One thing I didn't like about the film, I think one of you noted it, the original characters just lack any power, or, they're just these statues that look like somebody made them in a theater class. You know what I mean? Like
withheld from you in the story in a way that's almost cruel. Where you're like, I like the scarecrow. I like the cowardly lion.
I know, but when we come across them in the beginning of the film, when she enters Oz, and everything is what's it called? Like they're turned to statues.
They're stoned.
And they come across the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man, and it just looks so fake. I don't know. You know what I mean? I was disappointed.
At the end of the film, when the Scarecrow comes back, I wrote down. I think this design for the Scarecrow really bums me out. It's just not. It's not very good.
It is. But then looking at the covers of the books, they do look remarkably similar to how they were portrayed there. So it's just. But my point is it's so hard to shake that original association with the film.
With living song and dance actors.
Yes.
Also, I think it's a thing about this movie that's really almost kind of as transgressive as the electroconvulsive therapy at the beginning is. It immediately takes you to a place that you love, that is cemented in your mind. To me, for whatever reason, Munchkin Land and the Emerald City are real, and I believe in them, and I'm powerfully connected to how they look in that one movie from the 1930s. And immediately they're all destroyed, gone, torn out of the ground, rendered asunder, turned to stone, and it's shocking and upsetting, and in the story, the context of the story, it's very shocking and upsetting to Dorothy. But for me as an audience member, it was violating. What is this movie even about?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Dorothy is like a lost civilization. It's ancient ruins. It feels something like, I'm looking at the Acropolis right now. Great things happened here once. But now it's just. But hey, there are no pesky tourists.
It does feel like that, particularly with the headless women who are dancing in a circle. What?
Fun stuff used to happen here. But
it does. It feels like a nod to antiquity, weirdly.
I think with the character designs of the characters who we are familiar with, this is something I'm learning about teaching a vampire film class. So we're doing some Hammer films, and there's one that has Dracula in it, and very much how while the Oz books 2 and 3 of Oz are public domain by this point, and they can do what they want with them. MGM still has the rights to the character likenesses, so they'll get sued. Disney gets sued if they make the character look too much like their Wizard of Oz character. So they have to have something
that's helpful to
decidedly
know.
different.
I also believe the ruby slippers are a huge sticking point because those are our MGM movie thing. They're the book. They're silver slippers, and they use the ruby slippers in this film. Which I think is another thing that's so complicated. Because when you're watching it, you're constantly asking yourself, what is this a sequel to? What are we returning to is the central question. And we're not returning to Judy Garland's movie at all. The movie tells you that basically from the first frame. This is a different thing. But we still use the ruby slippers, which they had to license from MGM. Like it wasn't just like oh, they should be red because they're red in the other movie. It was a legal, lawyers were involved in getting the ruby slippers. So it's a very careful decision to give you the ruby slippers you expect, but almost nothing else you expect. I thought it was so strange. The ruby slippers detail was so strange.
And I think too, we look at like more modern films that come up, which I guess you could call this a legacy sequel. It's more of a sequel to the book that is different from the MGM movie. But a lot of legacy sequels would go out of their way to have certain things pop up to give you that twinge of nostalgia, or there's a ship, or there's a character, or there's some saying, or there's something.
We're looking at the thing from the other movie. You know, the one you remember?
I remember this thing I love so much, and there it is again. And this is a film that doesn't do that until it deploys those ruby slippers.
Which is so strange to me. Because to me, the first thing I would do if I was working on this movie, they would say, should we do the ruby slippers or should we not? And I would say, well, let's not because it's more expensive. Right. And also, this has nothing to do with the other.
Except when the Gnome King puts them on.
It would be like licensing one of the songs. It would have no purpose. Yes, the Gnome King puts on the ruby slippers, which I thought was one of the craziest parts of the movie. The little kitten heels on that Gnome King, and really great, luxurious close-ups of them, and how strange it looks, and like the impossibility of it. Like, he's like enormous, like 15 feet tall, and the shoes are on the little girl, and then on his giant stone feet, and it's. And you even see dainty little shots of him like tapping his toes in them. And I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, it is a really charged moment. It really is. Like,
yeah, and exactly what you wanted to see. Like, he puts them on, show them to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, there they are, right under his little robes.
There are some interesting fetishes in this film, particularly with the heads.
Oh, yeah. That I thought was a shocking image. Like, the heads in the boxes was really like wakes you up, like whoa.
That was the opening situation in the asylum, and then that scene in Mombi's closet gallery of heads. Those are the two scenes that captivated me the most. And
I thought it was shocking. I found it very shocking and engaging and interesting.
Yeah.
And I thought it was such an interesting way to introduce, where you introduce a character as one actress, and then she walks into a room and takes off that head and becomes a different actress for the rest of the movie. I thought was like cool storytelling.
Yes,
I was like, oh man,
really
what a great way to introduce your main villain, and she swaps heads.
It's also funny when Dorothy sneaks, the key away from Mombi, and she's snoring. But we know she doesn't have a head on. So where is the snore coming from? But doesn't matter.
Yeah.
When she rises that headless form, it's hilarious. It's so over the top.
Yeah.
But it's creepy.
And that hallway of decapitated models was.
Oh.
I just mentioned the logistics of everybody getting fit up in there.
I know.
I'm sure they're like, here's your straw. Drink some water. Don't look dehydrated.
Yep.
But and just having, also these actors can't see what the other actors are doing, so they've all got to like kind of be in sync when they react to stuff, and so it's.
But they do scream in sync, right? When Dorothy takes the potion of life, like it's really, that's a good scene. I think it's the best one in my opinion.
Not afraid. This movie's not afraid to show you something really scary and bizarre.
I know, it really is. I mean, and talk about like a taboo decapitation. I just would not expect that to be in a Disney film.
Yes, and also like in the story to make she's stolen those heads from people. She's taken those heads from women.
Is that in the book?
Yes, I believe so.
It is.
If I recall correctly. Yeah.
Wow.
It's like princess something, but she basically does the same thing that Mombi does. Takes the head, switches them in and out, and all that good stuff. And that was one of the things that Jack Pumpkin had said. It's like she will forget things if she doesn't have the right head on, which I think is a little like it's a nice little. This is how this creature, this being exists. They're not going to remember everything if they don't have the right head on.
Yeah, I just thought it was such a those aren't her heads. I thought that was such a scary idea to put in the movie.
And there's so many like sayings about, lost my head over that, or I got my head on screwed on backwards, or there's just so many things, idioms about the being wrong-headed.
I got really, as the movie went on, one thing they do is till the end, they don't show you the Gnome King. And there are really fantastic, the Headless Queen is one of the most fantastic things I've ever seen. And like the TikTok is a cool robot, and the Gump is
Who
fascinating.
looks like Theodore Roosevelt, he looks like a Rough Rider.
Ready to fight.
So like there's anticipation. I remember in the middle of the movie just thinking, oh, this Gnome King, it better be awesome. Like they've been holding him off and holding him
Right.
off. And then when you get to the big sequence where the Gnome King is revealed, at first I was like, oh, it's just kind of like the other monster we've seen a lot of. But it is the weirdest thing. So the Gnome King is stop motion animation. At first he's like just mouth on a rock. And then as the sequence goes on, and I think in the story world, the idea is as creatures disappear from Oz, he gets more powerful.
Yeah, he gets more human.
So he's destroying Dorothy's friends and becoming more of a presence in the physical world instead of just a rock formation. He becomes a stop motion animation rock that's like flat on the wall to one that's like 3-dimensionally projected, which is a cool like stop motion thing. And then there is just one shot where he transitions to a man in makeup. And I rewound the movie like 4 times to watch it because I was like, what a crazy edit where it's this claymation, and then there's a rumble of thunder, and then we cut to it's the same character design with just a man with paint on his face.
Yeah.
And it is such a strange idea that I feel like if I would just I would have spent a whole afternoon trying to talk people out of it, where I'd be like, I don't think that we can do it that way.
Right.
And it kind of works. It kind of doesn't, but it's very strange.
I guess I was always a big fan of Nicole Williamson because this was later, but I'd watched. He plays Merlin in the 1980-81 Excalibur film.
Oh, okay, yeah. This is a movie I think I maybe saw parts of it once in my life.
Yeah, that was like growing up. It was on HBO, the free HBO. I somehow got in my.
That was before
house.
this movie.
Yeah,
because this was a thing that also fascinated me about this movie. This movie does not have any movie stars in it. The whole performance is on that poor little girl. Fairuza Balk. The whole movie hinges on her, and she's just a child.
She's in 98% of the film.
And there's no names to put on the poster to support her, to sell tickets. And you'd think you would want. I am unfamiliar with who plays the witch, Jean Marsh. Maybe she was a bigger star in the context of the mid 1980s, so maybe I'm giving her short credit. She does a great job in this movie, but in my estimation, she's not like a on the movie poster star. And neither was Nicole Williamson. Maybe it makes more sense if Excalibur was a bigger movie just before it.
I think too. This is a film for children. Let's not, it's not that an adult can't enjoy it, obviously, but this is the primary audience is kids, their parents taking their kids to see this film, and then whatever they're going to deal with when they get out of the theater. That was, I think about like E.T. or Goonies or films like that. You don't. The actors are important but their names don't really mean that.
I guess that's true. Those movies weren't built around adult movie stars.
There was like Steven Spielberg or Amblin Entertainment. So this idea, and things that would be like kids films or family films. It's more the story than if The Rock is in it or something like that. So.
Yeah. I just thought it was such a weight to put on that little girl is to be the star of the movie,
right?
And like promote this Disney film with only your name and face attached to it seemed like an incredible position to put a little girl in. And
also, given her age at the time, she could only work about 3.5-4 hours a day. So, and this is in England. When they're shooting it, they shot it at Elstree Studios in England, and so they're really crammed. Like she's got to be there. This is the time she can shoot, and then they shoot around her. But she clearly showed herself to be professional and did everything on. I think there was something where it was like when there was some of the water scenes where she's like, "I'm cold." Other than saying "I'm cold," she didn't complain, and she did all her stunts. So that was just This was obviously a frustrated and troubled production, but I feel like they did the best they could working around her work schedule.
Yeah, and I didn't I don't know. I only skimmed a few interviews she did about it, but she seemed to have a really positive react. Like this was a good production for her.
Yeah.
It was not a film where she was felt out of, like that she was too much was put upon her. She was worked too hard. Or she has fond memories of Return to Oz.
And this was the first film she had done.
It was her first. Yeah, she was a young actress, but this is her first feature film, I think. And she went on to have a career she's still working in movies today.
Yeah.
Huh.
There was a point in the movie where I was worried about that person. Where I was like, there's so much put upon this young person. What was the fate of this young person? And I was so excited when I looked her up and I was like, oh, she's that lady from movies.
Yeah. She's doing all right. I wonder if the film was a big success, that might have pushed her into those types of roles, because she's definitely more the rebellious type characters, transgressive characters. She's in The Waterboy. She's Adam Sandler's love interest in that and things like that.
Yeah, I forgot The Waterboy. Yeah.
So she's kind of very wild-eyed, very like a lot of the films she did later are very opposite of what she does in this first film. So,
yeah, I would say she reads very innocently in the film. But I loved your point, Ian, about her kindness and her honesty, and she seems unflappable.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah,
you can't. Dorothy does not give up. I always like that about Dorothy.
She accepts help, but she also thinks of things. She's the one that figures out the way to get them to escape. Mombi's evil clutch is not that evil. The wind is open. They just need to fly out.
I know.
But there's just really a lot of, she's just a capable character. Some of this, I think, goes back to what L. Frank, going to the source material, L. Frank Baum would, to our eyes now and back then, he would be considered a feminist. He's very much a mother-in-law that was a noted feminist, and he kind of writes stories for girls where they're the heroes, and it kind of bucks against that. The male boy is default in these types of stories.
It's refreshing.
So and I think he did that in a lot of his books, and it's also so rare that you see even in media now. Is it getting a little better sometimes, I guess, but where it's a woman or it's a girl who's the protagonist, and not here's all the guys, and
I was really struck by some details in the end of this film, because. I do think it's complicated, this film. Is it about these books? Is it a sequel to that Judy Garland movie? What's really going on in this movie? And I think the ending echoes the Wizard of Oz, the film, the Judy Garland film, in that she clicks her heels and she goes back to Kansas. Right. In the 1930s film, she wakes up in her bed, surrounded by everyone that loves her, literally holding her hands, and her hair is perfect. And she wakes up and says, "What happened?" And that does not happen to this Dorothy. She goes back to Kansas, and she is alone. She is cold. She's soaking wet in the mud. And she is laying on her side on a riverbank and opens her eyes in Kansas. And I thought it was such a cold ending, like a cold return. Like she is scooped up soon, rescued by the people that love her, and is returned to their arms.
Henry, obviously feeling much more vigorous, runs and picks her up.
Right, and the house is finished.
Henry is
about finished.
By the off-screen, by the trauma of losing her, Henry is awakened from his stupor, and Aunt Em is there to take her and love her and comfort. It is a happy ending.
It is.
But
she gets a room of her own.
Yeah.
Scene,
she gets her own room in the house, and she gets to decorate it how she wants and spend her time there. But I always think about that moment when Dorothy opens her eyes. When Judy Garland has opened her eyes, there's Aunt Em.
That's a great point.
But when this Dorothy opens her eyes, it's alone, cold in the mud. And I do think that is a philosophical thing about this story, like a perspective this story has on what it is. How does she get to Oz? She's not running to Aunt Em and scooped up by a tornado. Aunt Em leaves her in a terrible place. And she gets washed away to Oz. And when she wakes up, there she is, alone and cold in the mud.
Yeah.
And I think that, too, is such a strange feeling that it makes this movie really stick with you. Where you're like, it's not simple, like the feelings you have as you move through the story. It's complicated and weird and a little bit ugly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. She gets herself back, though. I
Yeah.
mean, I hadn't thought about it like that. I guess I focused more so on the recovery of the home at the end, but that's a great point that she's washed up, so to speak, on the side of the riverbed, and that's interesting.
And again, it kind of gets back to that the unpleasant transit back to
Right.
our world, and there's no evidence of she has no evidence that the chicken's gone. The chicken has gone to live with Ozma. It's probably better because
Yeah.
at some point she's going to be in a stew,
Right.
even if she is productive egg layer. And it seems like this kind of like there was the norm of like depression and anxiety about not having everything built and winter's coming, and there seemed to be magically in a little bit of a better place. Things have improved. Everybody's they're doing the work, and everybody's back to some sort of sense of normal at that point. But also, things are better in Oz. Things are better on the farm. So, I was kind of interested. You had talked a lot about, not to get too much into Freud type stuff, but some of the Freudian psychoanalytic aspects of the film that are hard to miss if you acknowledge them.
I know. Well, and I am by no means a theorist at all, but in creative nonfiction, and particularly in the field of the personal essay, we love a good psychoanalytic reading because it really speaks to the way I think essayists are always looking for slippages in the language to find out our unconscious motivations that come through, and you have to write to discover them. But I think the film, like all the focus on Mombi and Jack Pumpkinhead wanting Dorothy to be his mom, it's hard not to think about what are the implications of that. And Dorothy doesn't have a biological mom. M is her.
She calls her aunt.
Yep. So there seems to be a real kind of obsession with maternal power or absence. And isn't that a motif in Disney too? Motherless protagonists.
There's a lot of motherless. There's a lot of like they've got a dad,
right.
But the Bambi's mom gets killed. But a lot of the absence of this mother. Mother's died.
And the woman who steps in that role, your relation to her is complicated.
Yeah. Well, and what you said, Ian, about her return is cold, and it's not like a fuzzy, happy, perfect return to the world, her life. It's like a birth. It's kind of violent and not an easy entry. Re-entry.
It has that pain and that coldness and that alone, and it takes a moment before someone grabs you and says, "Hey, you're safe. We're here."
Yeah. But besides the mom motif, I think just that Gnome King's allergy to eggs, or whatever it is about eggs that he can't ingest. Like it does seem like there's a sort of wink happening in the film. Do you see it? Or is it just me that like feels like there's a lot of fetishization of these loaded symbols?
I do know that the Mombi on the chariot whipping the wheelers. I was like, that is a powerful image, and we have only played with it a little bit in this movie.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know if I want none of that or a lot more. It's a very strange picture.
Well, even dismemberment, kind of recalls the abject, right? It's, the limb is there and not there. So there seems to be this anxiety about the corporeal boundaries and Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I can't say anything really super profound about it, but it just kept. I just kept noticing it as an adult watching it again. Like,
Well, I think about like primordial fairy tale fears.
right.
So like, when I was a kid, like the deadly desert freaked me out. It's like you're going to touch this desert and you will be unmade.
Right.
You will become sand. So you'll become dust. And the threat of getting your head cut off, the threat of being turned into and transformed into a knickknack. So all of your autonomy is gone.
Some sort of ghastly imprisonment in that way.
Yeah, and there's so much that is just the dismemberment, and you have your characters like the Gump constantly losing body parts, and Jack Pumpkin has to be strapped in and things like that. So yeah, it's this huge. These are like childlike fears that you see in folktales and fairy tales and things like that. I think it definitely delves into those things that have been in part of stories that have been told for centuries, probably thousands of years, and this is another reiteration of that in the film.
I think maybe too, this film does have that feeling of a fairy tale where not everything you encounter in a fairy tale it makes sense in a way that comforts you, and much of it is there are images that are designed to make you incredibly uncomfortable, and this movie has those kinds of things where you're like, I don't know why that's in here, and it has unsettled me and rattled me.
Right. And I think it provokes questions about where do I begin and end? Like the queen's desire for Dorothy's head, but she has to mature first. So there's this threat of, of losing her head, her autonomy, her bodily.
Yeah. I think the Queen and the Gnome King speak for a moment about, well, he's going to turn them all into ornaments and steal Oz. There's no circumstance where he's not going to do that. And she asks him, why do you make them play the game? And he says, well, it's more fun. Like that idea that he's never going to give them what they want, but he wants to torture them just a little bit mentally and emotionally.
It is sadistic, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think the Gnome King and Gnome and Mombi, they put off robber baron vibes. They are accumulating. I've got 30 heads, but I'll have another. I will trap you, Hansel and Gretel like, and get a 31st head. Like the Gnome King. He takes all the emeralds, then he turns people to stone. So they're both hoarders, and they want more and more power. And they use something like the ruby slippers. You can do good things with your ruby slippers. He just wants to do bad things with ruby slippers. And I have to say, they feel like robber barons of Baum's era, and they feel like tech billionaires in our era with the way they want to control and consolidate and have power. And if he doesn't get his way exactly, he pitches a huge fit. And to see him like she finally figures out, oh, green means someone from the Emerald City, that he just gets so mad that he doesn't get 100% of what he wants. Some of the lines that he's saying when he's doing this are pretty funny. Let's see here, I really wrote a lot of notes. Fumes and furnaces, petrified polymorphs. Because something you made in your notes that he goes from stop motion to an actor in costume and makeup, and then is going back into this stop motion animation creature. And then when he gets the poison chicken egg, you see him literally disintegrate, and the absolute disillusion of self.
Yeah.
And ego, I guess.
And that echoes what happens to the Wicked Witch in the first.
Yeah.
It is. She is dissolved. But it is interesting how you say he wants the ruby slippers because he wants everything. Give it to me. The witch wants the ruby slippers because they're hers. Like, Dorothy ain't supposed to have them. They belong to her. She's right that she deserves. I don't agree with her actions, but they are her slippers. They were stolen from her.
Yeah. whereas he just wants to covet them. And,
He just wants everything in
Yeah.
Oz.
And it just is odd, and kind of blames her. It's like, well, you dropped them as you were traveling home. I had to take them in their power. Well, it's like, this is my nature to conquer and have people submit to me. So I'm going to, what do you expect me to do kind of thing. So, so it's just, he's terrible character. He's a terrible, terrible person. But he also wants to be human, have some sort of human form as well.
Why do you think he's named the Gnome King?
Well, if I'm going by your name,
I mean,
by your
no,
notes.
I don't know.
No, me.
I mean, it's not. It could,
It's not the word gnome with a G,
Right.
like I might
G-N.
expect from fairy tales and
Exactly.
monsters.
And I don't know very much about gnomes with a G.
Yeah.
But what I do know is they're kind of like tricksters, aren't they? Aren't they sort of? They're not all together good, but they're not evil either, right? Am I
I don't know
making
much
that
out of them
up?
beyond like the generic sense that they are fairy characters,
Yeah.
which those are all true of fairy
They
characters.
hang out in people's yards all the time.
Yeah, that's my very, very limited understanding is that they're kind of like the fox character, like the tricksters.
I mean, definitely he is a predator who wants to play with his food and wants to see them like he could just turn them, but he wants to see them suffer
Yeah.
and see them do. He wants to see them turn themselves into knickknacks.
Right.
And it's Nome is I think how it's spelled. Yeah, that's such a strange word. I've always thought the word Ozma was a bizarre word whenever I've encountered it, and I never read the stories to know like it in its correct context. But I thought that those two syllables together, Ozma, like the queen.
Yeah.
Who's the queen of Oz? Their ma. It's such
Ma.
a weird.
Yeah,
it's such
right,
a like
their
a
ma.
strange word selection, and those two
is.
syllables together, no and me, are
Right.
very like bizarre in that sense.
Contrasted with Dorothy,
Yeah.
a very popular name at the beginning of the 20th century. You know what I mean? Like, it's just interesting that she's got the most, I don't know, like relatable, everyday, quotidian name. And then there are all of these, I don't know, names that you could analyze. But I think the Gnome King, I can't say that I really was captivated by him when I was growing up. It was mainly just about Dorothy and Mombi for me. But I loved your points, like reading your notes about the, how he goes from stop clay animation to suddenly a person. Like, I think there's something you could totally do with that analytically.
Yeah, I've never seen an effect like it.
Yeah.
It's so purposeful. It's not like I don't think like budget consideration. Like it was
Right. It was
designed from the ground up.
purposeful.
In these moments, he'll be claymation, and then at this moment, he'll be a man in a suit.
Right.
And it's such. I don't think I've ever seen it in another film to make that
Yeah.
kind of transition between effects, and it's very striking.
It is. He's not exactly a shapeshifter, but he undergoes his own transformation. And funny that a chicken, this humble chicken, is his downfall, and that chicken is a word we use for a coward.
Yeah.
It kind of exposes his real insecurity or weakness.
Well, I love just the thoroughness of the setup, narratively, the thoroughness of the setup of Bellina is not laying eggs.
Yeah.
This could cause her death. She needs to get to laying eggs. And so she just needs to go on an adventure and have a lot of stress to finally lay that egg, which is the most important egg she ever laid. And it's a step like, we don't want chickens. We don't want chickens in the Gnome Kingdom. And so it's all, and then right when they're going to die, she saves the day through just,
Yeah.
it's like, ah.
And
There it goes.
Bellina is funny too. Like her commentary, particularly in the beginning of the film, cracked me up. Like she makes this joke about how she's relieved that the sandwich and the lunch pail isn't fried chicken.
Yeah.
I mean, just little things like that. Like she's constantly quipping. And it's kind of like the jokes are kind of lost on Dorothy. She's just like, all right, well, I'm going to keep going on my way here, Bellina. But yeah, Bellina's like, you get the sense that she skews older, like she's like a matronly
Yeah, she feels like a
wisecracking.
wise, brassy, Borscht Belt comedian,
Yeah.
or something like that. That's kind of feels something like somebody who would be on like game shows like Hollywood Squares where they crack jokes. Like that's
Yeah.
the kind of vibe that she's
Yep.
bringing. And it was really funny. Like Marx Brothers films, there was an actress that worked with the Marx Brothers, particularly Groucho, named Margaret Dumont. She had this proper regal lady. And the thing in the films was she never understood any of Groucho Marx quips or jokes. He'd just be doing that, and she just looked like this. And this was the kind of thing where they thought was hilarious because and they got along in real life, but I really don't understand all his jokes. So
The perfect straight man.
kind of fun. It's the perfect straight man, straight woman for the role. It's kind of funny that Dorothy is the straight woman to Belena's jokes and bits. So yeah.
Oh, I do want to talk really. I do not want to not mention Walter Murch in this, the director of this film. I went back and I watched this movie, and I was like, I didn't investigate who directed it. And then at the end of the movie, I was like, well, who directed this movie? And I didn't know the name Walter Murch. It wasn't leaving mind. And this is the only movie he ever directed, but he was the sound designer for critical movies in the 1970s. He was Francis Ford Coppola's sound designer for, I think, The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2, Apocalypse Now. This is a legendary Hollywood career before he ever set foot on this set. And my understanding is he did not have a good time on this movie. That this was a rough one. He got fired at one point, and I think Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas like went to Disney and said, hire him back to finish the movie. Like they used all their power and influence on the Walt Disney Corporation to get this movie back up and running, because I think they did it. I don't know, but I believe they did it as a personal favor to their filmmaker and collaborator Walter Murch, who like. I'm like, sorry, you caught a rough one on this production, buddy. Like, it didn't go, like, and he never directed again, but I think he did go back to sound design work.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, arguably one of the most important people in film ever. Like,
That's fascinating.
As a film artist to do The Godfather, The Conversation, The Godfather Part 2 in a row. Like, those were magical productions. And, I just thought that was fascinating.
Wow. Do you think the fact that the film did bomb at the box office, do you think that contributed to his never directing again?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I mean, like, financially, like, you can't, like, it's hard. Like, you can't lose a lot of money for Disney and then direct big movies. But I also think, like, I'm just guessing, it probably, like, spooked him a little bit. Like, it was just a rough production for a lot of reasons.
Interesting.
I think always when I look at a movie like this that doesn't do well with audiences, it wasn't it's not the film's fault. When in a movie like this where you're like, well, this could have found an audience. Like, people obviously connect with it in weird ways. Like, maybe it's not the right project for a general audience. There's things about the movie that are complicated and weird, but that's okay with the movie. And oftentimes when you look into it, I find, well, the answer was that our production was spooked from the jump. Like, Disney wanted to make it because they had the rights to those books and they were about to lapse. Yeah. So they had to rush a movie into production. Walter Murch went to Disney and was like, I'd like to direct, I am a Hollywood legend. I would like to direct a big movie. And they were like, what kind of stories interested you? And he was like, are you doing anything with Oz? And they were like, my God, man, we have to do something with Oz in the next 18 months. And then it was just rushed. So
then he co-wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was just rushed. A very troubled production from the very beginning. At some point, I forget what it was very early in the film. They just plain old fashioned fired him because he was behind schedule and over budget, or immediately.
Jeez.
And I just
what a fiasco.
Yeah. A real fiasco for Walter Murch.
And apparently, in interviews, he said this was actually a relief. I don't have to worry about this anymore. And then George Lucas and Fred's like, "Come on, man, you got to hire him back." And they're like, "Okay, I'll go back and finish the film." But yeah, it's one of those like. Great what would be. I'm just so fond. I'm really, really fond of this film, the way it looks, all the stuff, and that it I think really we're talking about particularly good film, really excellent films, and really good films that are primarily set for children. There's going to be weird stuff in them, and not in a factory line assembly way. They're going to be things that are going to be quirky, and that's the things that we, I assume, as children watching them and as adults, these are the things that stick out to us.
Yeah, but it was when I had it on the screen. It was such like a complicated movie that when I was looking at it, my first impression was, this is a kid. This is a young person who got a hold of this big production, and they had weird, dark ideas, and they were in conflict with Disney, and it all didn't work out. And then I was like, who directed this movie? I was like, one of the most veteran filmmakers you can imagine, a Hollywood legend, Walter Murch, stepped into it. Yeah, this is just a bizarre movie. Everything about it is weird.
It is. Yeah, it's wonderfully strange.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I dig it.
hokey. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Were you planning to cover the film for the podcast?
I have wanted to. I've wanted to do it. So
somehow I knew you liked it.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew you liked it as a kid.
Yeah.
and then I just had seen that you were working on that one essay.
You know, when I started writing about it, I was desperate to talk. I wish I had known that you were fans, but now I want to go back and revise my essay because this has been so insightful. But Joel couldn't recall it, and so he watched it with me for the first time recently, and he was not enchanted like I was. I mean, it was really nostalgic for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think this movie, it's so spiky. You will bounce off of it. Like some people will just be like, no, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. But
I'm curious about, because I don't feel like this film has ever had its big rediscovery. Like a lot of movies they'll come back, like they'll find their audience eventually, and it's so available. I feel like it was a big part of that initial Disney Plus Disney Vault section where it was one of the bigger movies, and that
it's been on Disney Plus ever since Disney Plus was open.
It had a real pride of place in that digital presentation, which had a worldwide audience, and I don't know why it's never had that big critical spark or reevaluation. I don't know what it would take. I think it would take Walter Murch's granddaughter being big on TikTok and promoting short clips from the movie to make people reevaluate it.
I feel like it's one of those films that, and I do periodically see your kind of media, pop culture movies and movies, TV kind of websites will say like, they'll do kind of a reflective review of like, this is a really good film. I don't know why, it's a horror movie for kids, and a lot of those things come up. Yeah, and that it was fascinating and ahead of its time. And I think it's one of those things where it does have a cult following now. But I think it's one of those things that it is a person to person kind of thing where you show this film to somebody, or you have a situation where you suggest to somebody, let's watch a film and talk about it. And I think it's not going to it's never going to play at Flashback Cinema in our local theaters, although I would go see it if it did. But it's something that is very like a person to person kind of thing.
I would agree with that. Because I enjoy talking about it with my cousins because they also grew up watching it.
Did you guys all watch it in the same house? Like it was on
I can't recall a time when we watched it together, but we would talk about it. But do you remember a show on Comedy Central called Mystery Theater?
Mystery Theater 3000.
Yes. Like I could imagine. Well, I guess what we're doing right now, doing some commentary. But I think it would lend itself very well to that kind of comedic treatment. Yeah. Where you just get to sort of, not necessarily to pick it apart, but just to, laugh at the absurdity, how over the top, they really go for it at times. Like it's just...
It is. I always admire a movie that is swinging for the fences.
It really is. This one really does. And not to say that there weren't other films at the time. Like Joel and I were talking last night about The Never-Ending Story, and there was another one that he brought up, maybe The Princess Bride, or just other fantasy films in the 80s, because children's fantasy had a real big moment in
Yeah.
the 80s. And so he was comparing this one to those films at this one's disadvantage. But I agree, Cody, that it is a film that I think people, at least in my experience, associate with a certain time in their childhoods. And so it's not that maybe it's not a great film according to artistic standards, but I think it does kind of conjure up some sentimentality about, like, this is a film that wasn't afraid to address some scary big things.
Yeah.
I think this is a great example of a film where you might bounce off this movie and it might make no impression upon you. But if it does, like it worms its way in. Like it's got enough touch points where if these images speak to you, it feels like it's talking only to you. Like which is a powerful kind of movie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I think too, the Wizard of Oz stories and everything that is the quintessential American fantasy stories. That came from America, came out of America, and a lot of it, a lot of like what we call high fantasy, is very European derived or European adjacent. Princess Bride, it's a European medieval whatever fairy tale land that it takes place in, and so I don't know if sometimes the fantastical and America put together sometimes I think has a little bit of a negative association or seen as somehow less. I mean, obviously, the Wizard of Oz itself, the 39 movie was hugely, but it was also, it's a fantasy film, it's a musical, it's a melodrama, it's all these.
Yeah.
It's about the power of friendship. You know,
Right.
it's about all these things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I will always have affection for this movie because I will always remember my little 5-year-old running around the house yelling, "I'm Dorothy Gale! I'm Dorothy Gale!" So this movie, it earned my heart eventually.
Yeah.
And I would say this is definitely a film for something to watch in your life. It is one of those. It was a big budget film. It has ambitious goals. It's arty. To me, it's crowd pleasing. I like weird stuff.
Oh,
but also I like weird stuff that's accessible.
I think I have talked about this movie during our conversation as if it's not a perfectly reasonable, crowd-pleasing blockbuster film.
Yeah.
It is a weird family film, but it is a family film. If you have a weird family, this is the family. This is the family film for you.
Yeah.
So, any other last thoughts? Or
No, just thank you for bringing this movie to us.
Yeah, no, thanks. I'm delighted to get to talk about it at length because so few people have even heard about it. So, at least in my experience, like I'm not a film scholar, and so it's just really a pleasure to get to talk to you about it.
You can start an email group if you want. It's something you remember. I was like,
I would definitely encourage you to watch Child of Glass.
Yeah,
because I doubt very much that one has aged as well because of the setting of it and the plantation South. But I would be very curious to hear your thoughts about it. Yeah, Disney, you're right about they did take some risks.
I do think this era in Disney was interesting in that it was. I think this was a troublesome era for the company. They were really a company in transition. Before, was it like was Michael Eisner like that was a 1990s thing where they kind of their resurgent, right?
He came 1985. He came in and Jeffrey Katzenberger to run the film division. So they come up.
And what year was that?
1985.
I think that was the thing that influenced this movie too. Is a big change in executive leadership that made the production more troublesome. Yeah.
It's also the Disney animated film, The Black Cauldron, came out in '85 too, and it was apparently Katzenberger had gone into the editing suite where they were editing the animated film and started cutting it. And they're like, you're not supposed to. It's a lot more complicated than just cutting a scene out from a live action movie, and they kind of put it back together. And of course, these were Eisner and Katzenberger figured out how to make Disney films that people wanted to see. And this was kind of in Disney's dark ages. We talk about animation, and then those are the people that set forth and created the Disney Renaissance. You have things like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and these kind of classic
Yeah, I do think
animated films.
in the soil of the failure of this movie, is sown the success of The Lion King, where they're like, we need to rethink what's going. What we're doing.
That idea of like, a kid can watch this and read it one way, and an adult can watch it and read this another way too. I think it's that dual audiences. We're going to get some of the jokes the kids aren't going to get, and then when they get older, they'll get the jokes. And so
Yes.
that's just a repeat viewing kind of thing that they got going on. So, yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining
It
us.
was fun. It was really fun.
And if we think of if there's other films you think about,
I will
be happy to
make
invite you back.
recommendations. Yeah. Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everyone. Make sure to like and subscribe and share. And we'll talk to you when we talk about the next film, flop, or bomb.